So I would like to think that we have some semblance of knowing what is right versus what is wrong. Let me give you an example. You're with your siblings, right? And I know that they annoy you. I know that they drive you up a wall. But I would like to think that you know it's not right to punch them in the face. Right? I know that feeling is welling up inside of you. That I just want to punch them in the face because of how much they're irking me and how much they're annoying me. And it's just time to give them a good old 1-2 to the gut and to the face. Or maybe it's this idea of I want to bully them and I want to put them in their place because of how much they're annoying me. And we know that's not right, but we just want to do it anyways. But you choose not to, right? I hope that would be the case. But in some senses, right, we don't always know what's right versus what is wrong. We know it's wrong to punch someone in the face. We know it's wrong, like Joseph's siblings, as we've been talking about Joseph, about the fact that they shoved him into a pit and they sold him into slavery in Egypt. We know that that's wrong. But we would argue that some situations are not always that obvious of whether something is right versus something that is wrong. Sometimes it seems a little more gray. Let me give you a couple of examples. Maybe you can resonate with some of these. Should I watch that Netflix show, right? We're spending so much time on social media and binge watching shows, and there's so many different shows you could watch, but maybe some that you shouldn't watch. And so should I watch that Netflix show because it has some sensuality in it, or it has some language, or it has some certain rating on it? Should I be friends with that person? Should I be in their sphere of influence because they might be a negative influencer on me, or they might not be bad, but they're not necessarily good? Should I be friends with that person? Should I play that game with my friends? Should I play that video game, that computer game, that game in real life, right? Should I play that game with my friends because it might not be the most uplifting thing? Should I add that word into my vocabulary? Should I add that word just because it sounds cool or popular, or maybe not? Should I speak up if I know someone is being falsely accused? Should I speak up if I know that, someone is being wrongly put down or wrongly spoken against and I know what is the truth? Should I speak up? Should I lie if it keeps someone else safe? And so as we look at some of these types of questions, and there's so many more, but if we're being honest, we would like to say, oh, I have the right answer. I know what's right and wrong. But when you're placed in that moment, what's the right answer? What do I do? What do I do when I don't know what to do? We face the dilemma of what to do when we don't know when we don't know what is right or what is wrong. When the line becomes a little less concrete, a little more gray, we kind of are left in this moment of like, what's the right answer and what do I do? And so we're going to continue on in this series through the life of Joseph of what to do when you don't know what to do. Because today we're going to talk about, when the line is a little bit blurred, what's the right answer? Or maybe it's not even blurred. It's an area of weakness for me. It's an area of temptation. It's an area of, when I have the willpower to want to not give into that sin. But when I get into the moment, all bets are off and it's really difficult to say no. What do I do when I get into moments like that? And so through the life of Joseph, we're going to continue on. And as we look at where he's at right now, he had the relationship with his family that was super strained, and his brothers were really jealous, and they threw him into a cistern, and they sold him then into slavery in Egypt. And so now we have Joseph, and we see him now as a slave in Egypt. And here's where we pick up our story. In Genesis chapter 39, it says this: the Lord was with Joseph, so that he prospered, and he lived in the house of the Egyptian master. When his master saw that the Lord was with him and that the Lord gave him success in everything he did, Joseph found favor in his eyes and became his attendant. Potiphar put him in charge of his household and entrusted to his care everything that he owned. From the time that he put him in charge of his household and all that he had owned, the Lord blessed the household of the Egyptian because of Joseph. The blessing of the Lord was on everything Potiphar had, both in the house and in the field. So Potiphar left everything he had in Joseph's care, and Joseph in charge, and he did not concern himself with anything except the food he ate. Wow. So here's what happened. Joseph gets sold into slavery, and he is a lowly, pathetic slave Hebrew boy put into Egypt, right? And he goes into this guy's house named Potiphar. Now Potiphar sees that the Lord was with him, and Potiphar sees that this guy was strong, he was full of character, and he worked hard, and so he ended up putting him in charge in his house. And when he put him in charge, he saw that blessing was coming to his house, and that his crops were full and bountiful, and he was receiving lots of money, and that everything that Joseph touched was becoming successful. So he put him in charge even more, right? And he blessed him even more so to the point where he was in charge of everything. And he was basically like the second in command, basically, right? And so here we have Joseph, and he was in a moment of prosperity. And it's like, wow, this is awesome. This is so cool. And Joseph was just thinking to himself, man, this is pretty cool. Like, life just turned around for me. And now things are going really well. And he's now in charge of an Egyptian's household, right? And so now we move forward in our text, though, because it gets a little bit tricky on what's about to happen next, right? So here we go. Now Joseph was well built and handsome. And after a while, his master's wife took notice of Joseph and said, "Come to bed with me." Oof. So here's what happens. One observation. If we could tweak this text a little bit, it says, now Joseph was well built and handsome. What that really means is Joseph was kind of hot, right? And Potiphar's wife acknowledged, this slave boy is kind of hot, and I kind of want to sleep with him. And so when Potiphar's wife was basically equally in charge as Potiphar, and whatever Potiphar's wife said, that whatever the slaves heard from Potiphar's wife, they had to obey. They had to say yes to Potiphar's wife. So when she says, oh, this guy's kind of good looking, he's kind of attractive, I want me some Hebrew boy right now that I can sleep with, she said, come to bed with me. And she said, man, hook, line, and sinker. He has to say yes because he's a slave. He has to say yes to me. But Joseph was put in a moment of, what do I do? Because I'm supposed to say yes because I'm a slave and I have to honor her. But I kind of have a God that I honor more so, right? So what happens? What happens next? Joseph says this, but he refused. With me in charge, he told her, my master does not concern himself with anything in the house. Everything he owns, he has entrusted to my care. No one is greater in this house than I am. And so he refused. He said, no, this isn't going to happen. My master has withheld nothing from me except you because you are his wife. How could I do such a wicked thing and sin against God? So he put his foot down and he said, no. So he said no to Potiphar's wife. He said, I understand that I am your slave and I'm supposed to say yes to you, but I'm not going to. And it continues on actually. And though she spoke to Joseph day after day, asking him to come to bed with her, he refused to go to bed with her and even be in the same room as her. Man, so Joseph, he was stuck in this situation. What do I do? What in the world do I do when I am faced with it's kind of a blurred area of what I should do? Well, what happened? Out of respect for Potiphar and out of an even bigger respect for God, Joseph simply did the next right thing. Joseph simply acknowledged, okay, I'm going to honor and respect Potiphar as the master, but ultimately my authority does come from God. It supersedes you and actually goes up to God and says, okay, what would God want me to do? What would God think of this? Is this honoring and worshipful to God, or is this giving into my own lustful temptations? Or is this giving into a lesser master other than God? And so out of respect for Potiphar and having bigger respect for God, he simply said no. And even though Potiphar's wife egged him on over and over again, he still said no. He was like, nope, deuces, I'm out of here. This ain't happening. And you know what? Potiphar's wife got a little too greedy. And one day she said, come to bed with me. And he said, nope. She started screaming, saying, help, help. He's taking advantage of me. Well, he ran out of the room as quickly as he could, but she grabbed his cloak that he had on his back and he left the room. When Potiphar comes back into the house, she says, here's his cloak. He was starting to derobe himself and tried to sleep with me and make advances to me. And she straight out lied. And in doing so, Potiphar was outraged and he threw Joseph in prison. And so this is where we're leaving Joseph now. He's back. He's in a prison again, just like he was when he was in that cistern in a prison, right? And so here we have Joseph, but he chose to do the next right thing, regardless of how the outcome was gonna go, right? Joseph did what was right, and he trusted God with the outcome. He didn't know what was going to happen, but he said, no, I'm going to honor God over honoring this lesser master, and I'm not going to give in to my temptation and my own flesh, but I'm going to do what is right. He was a person of integrity. Integrity, doing the right thing when no one is watching or no matter what the circumstances, right? So integrity means being the kind of person who does what's right regardless of the outcome and regardless of who is around. And here's the thing I would love to ask of you is, would you call yourself a person of integrity? Would you call yourself a person who says, I'm going to do the right thing regardless of the outcome and regardless of who is around, regardless of whether it is popular or not, regardless of whether I'm going to get praise or not, right? Because sometimes when you do the right thing, it will get you applause and sometimes it won't. Sometimes it will get you the applause of the attaboy, other times it does not. Sometimes doing the right thing will cost you something and sometimes it won't. In this case, it cost Joseph getting thrown into prison. Was it worth it? If you continue on with us in this series, you'll see that it will be, but we don't see it in the moment. And it will cost you sometimes, and sometimes it will not cost you. And sometimes doing the right thing will make you look good. Sometimes it will make you look stupid. And we've been there, right? We can understand this. We can know sometimes it gets you applause, and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it will cost you, and sometimes it won't. Sometimes it will make you look good, and sometimes it will make you look stupid. We know this. So what does it look like for us to say that, man, I'm going to do the next right thing, even if it's not the most popular? We don't get to decide how things turn out, but we do get to decide what person we want to be. And so here's the thing, gang, is that you get to decide. You get to decide what kind of person you're going to be, what student you're going to be, what athlete you're going to be, what female you're going to be, what kind of male you're going to be. Are you going to be a person of integrity? Are you going to be a person of honor? Are you going to be a person that's trustworthy? Or are you going to be a person who's selfish, who's giving into your own lustful temptations and your own greedy desires in moments where, yeah, it is very not clear what is the right or the wrong answer? Am I just going to give in because I want to, because I think it's fun, because it's pleasurable? Or am I going to stand in the ground of the character of Jesus and say, no, I'm going to do what's honoring to Jesus. I'm going to do what's honoring to God first and foremost. And I'm going to do what's right by my convictions and what the scripture says. Are we going to be that type of person? Because, man, we don't always get to decide how that person's going to react or how the other person on the other side, my parents, my friends, my coach, my boyfriend, my girlfriend, how they're going to react, but I do get to choose how I'm going to react. And so when you don't know what to do, man, choose to just do the next right thing. And that could sound overly simplistic, and you could say, okay, sure, just do the right thing. Okay, Tony, that's great. How do I do that practically? Well, here, let me give you a couple of steps as we land the plane today. And here's number one. Think of an area in your life that you struggle doing the right thing. Man, if you're being really honest, you struggle in this particular area. Maybe it is with lust. And maybe it is with looking at pornography on your phone or your computer or whatever. Maybe it's just being greedy with your siblings. Maybe it's bullying them. Maybe it's putting them down. Maybe it is watching those Netflix shows that you know you shouldn't be watching, or listening to that music that you know you shouldn't be watching to, or watching that influencer on TikTok or Instagram that you know you probably shouldn't be, but it's fun, it's enjoyable. Maybe think of an area that you struggle with in doing the right thing or putting your foot in the ground, that this is not something I should be pursuing. When it's a little more gray, what do I do? And so maybe you think of that area, right? And then here's the second thing. Just determine what you're going to do before and make a plan. Guys, we give into temptation when we don't have a plan. We are so much on the defensive of our faith so many times. What would it look like for us to go on the offensive and say, okay, I'm going to come up with a plan of how I'm going to respond when I'm in that situation, when I'm with that friend who's going to tempt me to do something I know I shouldn't do, or say that thing I know I shouldn't say, or watch that thing I know I shouldn't watch. What's your plan? Come up with a strategic plan of how I'm going to not give into that temptation or that trigger. And then thirdly, invite someone in to keep you accountable. Guys, we can't do this alone. We're not meant to do the Christian walk on our own. So what would it look like for you to invite somebody in to keep you accountable in the process of your weakness, of the gray areas, of the things that we go through? Because guys, there's so much gray area in our life. I get that. There's probably way more gray areas in our Christian faith than there are concrete areas, and black and white sometimes. And so how do we process that? How do we wrestle with that? Invite somebody in to keep you accountable. And then fourthly, man, just commit it to prayer. Committed to prayer. You can't do this without the empowerment of the Holy Spirit. I can't do this without the gifting and the wonder and the glory of God. So why would we try to do it on our own? So committed to prayer, guys. Would you be willing to commit whatever it is that you're wrestling with to prayer? And in the same way that Joseph said, I'm not going to give up on my convictions, and I'm not going to compromise. Would you be willing to say, I'm not going to compromise in this area in my life anymore? I'm going to stand firm, and I'm going to admit it's what's struggling. I'm going to determine what I'm going to do. I'm going to invite somebody in, and I'm going to commit it to prayer. Would you be willing to do that? Would you be willing to say, man, when I don't know what is the next right, when I don't know what to do, I'm just going to do the next right thing. I'm going to do what I can to honor Jesus first and foremost. I'm not going to do my selfish acts. I'm just going to go after the character of Jesus and honoring the people in my sphere of influence. Would you be willing to do that? Thanks, guys. We love you. God bless.